great tool, and it's for 3D modeling, of course, which is what you're going to be learning about this term. You can download Blender for free from blender.com, I think it might be, or blender.org, and you can also get it for on Steam now, which is great because it'll keep it updated as well. And most of you will probably have a version of Steam at home, so you can just look for it on Steam and download and install it. Anyway, when you run it, this is the current version. You'll see this little thing load up at the start, and you can just click to get out of the way. Now this video is going to be fairly short. It is just on this interface, and as you can see, it's quite complicated. There's a lot to see. This bit in the middle here is our scene view. Okay, it kind of contains everything that's in the scene, everything that's in the world. At the moment, by default, there will be a cube there. There will be a light source. That's what this is over here. And I'm not actually sure if my mouse is recording, so I hope it is. But this little circle with the two dotted lines on the outside of it is a light source. The thing in the middle is a cube. And then this thing over to the left with like the lines pointing out with a black triangle on top is a camera. We won't need these for a little while, but we can just leave them in the scene. So over here on the right, we've got the hierarchy panel, and this shows us everything that's in our scene. So we can see scene, and then there's a camera in the scene, there's a cube in the scene, there's a lamp in the scene. We can actually turn these on and off by clicking these little eye things here. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure what those other things do at the moment, but we can turn these on and off if we don't want to play around with them. Then down here we've got all our different properties for whichever object I've got selected. So this is a property panel. At the moment it's set to scene, which is at the top here, but if I click on camera, it's still the scene properties for the camera, but you'll see some of these along the top here actually change. So some of them have a few more options. To select an object in Blender, you just right click on it, not left click. Left click just changes that 3D cursor. Right click will select an object. Down the bottom here, we've got our properties panel, and not our properties panel, our menu. And this is probably the most useful menu that we'll be looking at. So from left to right, this bit here is the current view. Okay, generally we want to be in 3D view most of the time. Later on we'll probably switch to some timeline stuff, but for most of it we're going to be in 3D view. Then we've got the view panel where we can change the view a little bit. We'll look at that later on. Select, we won't use that much. We'll tend to use shortcut keys a whole lot more. Add, you will use this a lot because it's for adding different shapes and objects into the scene. Object panel, where we can modify objects. So if I right click on this, I can make changes to the object, group different things together, mirror it, etc. And down the bottom here, this bit here is quite important to remember. Okay, this is the current mode that we're in. So currently we're in object mode, but if I click on edit mode, I can now start to edit this particular object. I can't edit what a light source looks like because it's that's just a representation of a light source. I can change different properties of the light source. So go back to object mode. The tab key will switch between those two. So if I push tab, so it switches between object and edit mode. This here is the view mode. By default we're in solid. Later on we'll probably want to switch to maybe material mode. And wireframe mode is quite handy as well, but just leave it in solid for now. Then we've got pivot options. We won't worry about those. More pivot options here. Layers. So if I click on layer 2, well, there's nothing on layer 2. There is something on layer 1 though. And all the way along there's some snapping options here, but the main part to remember here is object mode. Okay, object mode and add mesh. We're only going to be really working with meshes, probably some text. We're not going to worry about these other types of models. NURBS modeling is quite complicated. We're just going to work with meshes and deforming meshes. Meshes are called meshes because when I go into edit mode, you'll see that it's made up of vertices and faces and edges, etc. We'll look at that in the next video. Down the bottom here is your timeline. At the moment, there's no animation, so there's no point hitting play or anything. But this is the timeline down the bottom. And then over here, up the top, we've got the file menu where we can save a copy. There is one little trick with Blender, or it's more of an annoyance. When you go save, if you want to change the file name, first you need to make sure that, if I call it, say, cube, I put .blend on the end. Otherwise, I won't be able to open it again. By default, it's there, but it's always untitled, and it doesn't add it automatically. And I click save. Now, if I want to save it again, so say I make a change to it, and I go File, Save, it saves automatically. So that's not a problem. Sometimes it will ask you to save over it, and it will bring up these little menus like, let's see, new, like this here. And it's asked, and if I move away from it, it doesn't do anything. So if I click File, New, and move away from that, it disappears. It's actually asking me reload the startup file, and I've got to actually click that to confirm it, and it will reload that startup file. Down here, we've got our Tools panel, and these are tools that we'll get to pretty shortly. I'm just wondering if there's anything else that I have missed. Doesn't look like it for now. That looks to be it. We're actually going to use this default layout for the most part. Oh, at the top here, we can change it. So if we were full on animating stuff, we can put it in animation mode. If we were using the Blender game engine, we'd put it into game logic. Motion tracking for video. Scripting, if we were writing a program here. UV editing, we may end up using that one. Video editing, and back to default. Not 3D full view, but just default. And that'll bring us to here.